Hey, welcome back to the channel. I wanted to catch you up on what I've got going on here. This is the piece I was telling you about that I have to fit down in the bottom here. Let me get you a little closer here. Get a better look at what I've got happening. Sequencing this is not that easy, but I'm trying to figure it out, and so I better mark this the front so I don't lose track of it. But I think what I will do differently on the next one is now that I've epoxied this 16th inch plywood on this side, I'm actually going to have to route that out for 3/4 inches. It's going to be really confusing, but I'll show it to you. So I've got the piece that fits in between my root rib and my number 1 rib, and then I've gone and I've marked where the gussets are. And actually, this is the that's not the front. This is the front. I've marked where my gussets are, so that I can now, because I have to cut out for each of those. Got to cut out so that this piece fits in between the gussets. So what I'll have to do is relieve a 1/16 of an inch on either side here. So basically, I need a different ruler for that, but I'm just going to mark where these are located. Now this, if I would have left out the plywood, this would have been a whole lot easier, because I could mark the piece as it's on top, but I didn't, so I'll learn that for the next one. I'll get it taken care of on that one. But for this one, we just need to mark these, and then we'll take a 1/16 of an inch for the gusset on either side. So we'll just measure that out here. So we got basically a 1/16 and a 1/16. Catch that over here. Then we just need to mark that here. And then on this side, all right, so these are the sections that have to be removed. This one and this one and this one and this one. And what that it'll allow me to get this in there, and it'll slide right by the gussets. And then I'll have to clamp this, and then after the whole thing is dry, then I'll have to do my routing, which is going to be a pain, but that's okay. Not a big deal. All right, so I'm going to go to the bandsaw, and we'll get this taken care of. All right, so I got the piece cut out and I've got it test fit, and I just wanted to show you what we've got here. You can see it's in there, and I've got it clamped in place. This is where it basically where it ends back here, and so what I'll end up doing actually is butt joining this piece. That's going to be going. Let's see if I can show you here. This piece is going to be going this way. I'll butt join it, and then I'll actually put a piece of plywood, like 1/8 inch plywood gusset underneath here to capture that. And so that piece will get epoxied in, clamped in place, and I might have to figure out how many clamps I'm going to need. Probably a couple more clamps. And now that I've gone this far with it, I actually think this should be sheeted first before actually putting this piece in. So I've kind of changed my mind on that. Instead of only partially sheeting it, you really need this support in order to get this board to bend like that in there. So that worked out okay. And then and once I get that epoxied in place, I'll actually go ahead and epoxy this in the bottom sheeting that goes on here. And while I'm at that, I'll come down here and I'll get the epoxy. I'll epoxy this piece here on as well. So those will be taken care of, which will be great. And yeah, and then once this dries, the rest of the work all will take place from the top side of the wing. So once we get this all dried, once the epoxy's all set here, then we can flip it over and we'll work from the other side. The trailing edge pieces are drying nicely back here. They'll be ready probably today. And then I've got my this turned out really nice. So everything's nice and tight up against the rib here, which is what I wanted. So things are moving along, and yeah. So let me get some epoxy mixed up, get a couple other things set up here, and then we'll be off and running. All right. So since I'm going to be routing part of this out, I only really need to put epoxy on the bottom that's going to get glued to this surface here. About halfway. There's no reason to put it all the way because I'm going to be cutting some of that plywood out anyway, and I'll just be removing it. So not that it would hurt to do it that way. It's just it'll probably start chipping out with the router bit easier. Maybe it's better if it's all epoxy together, and then it'll be it won't accidentally chip something out that shouldn't be chipped. Probably come out smoother. Yeah, so I'm talking myself into just doing the whole thing, and which is probably cool because then it'll squeeze up around the edges and fill in the gaps and stuff. There's just some minor gaps there. So I'll get this epoxy on here and then get this piece put in. Should be able to spread this pretty easily. I know it's probably, at this point, it's a little bit challenging for you to visualize what I'm doing, but I think after I flip the wing over and start this next process, you'll actually you'll get a better look at it. So what this piece ends up doing is you put your this is actually what the tank cover will be screwing into, so basically creating a perimeter of RS-17 quarter-inch material all the way around the tank compartment, and then that's what the what everything attaches to when you put the cover on. I specifically used a piece where the grain is running this way, so I'll be screwing a cross grain, which is what you want to do, as opposed to having everything going with the grain this way. I have some pieces that go both ways, so like here's an example of a piece that's going the other way, and it's better to screw through this than it is to screw through that, so prevents any separation. Of course, you do pilot holes and all that anyway, but yeah. So this is my front. So we gotta get some on there. Here. All right, so that's all epoxied up and ready to slip down in here. And it's going to be interesting because I have to get this in and through without losing all my epoxy, so and I gotta lift it up because the very back piece, I just needed something to hang on to, so I just gotta get some glue back here. Okay, I'm gonna clamp it in place. Alright, that's all good. So now we move on to this. Alright, so now we just flip her over and get her attached here. And probably just attaching it to the rib itself is probably good enough, but I'm actually attaching it a little bit to the, I'm going to the outside of the gusset, so just get one there. Alright, it's got to come over a little bit. So sometimes things slide, which is exactly what's happening here. So I think I may actually have this backwards, so. All right, so I got this part. I got this part all done here. You can see I've got this stapled on. It's all nice and tight. And then I've got my clamps in place, holding that 1/4 inch material under there. And that's great. And now all I got to do is I'll do one more thing today, and that's I'll come down here and I'll actually put this piece on the tip as well. But you've already seen that, so you don't have to watch that part. And then next time we will flip this back over, and then we can continue working on that tank cover mount area. And by then we'll be varnishing the inside of the other 2 aileron sections like this, and then those 2 will go on. And yeah, cool. So thanks so much for hanging out with me today, checking out the channel and watching the video. And if you're not a subscriber, I invite you to subscribe and hit the little bell so you don't miss any of these episodes. And as always, hey, I'll catch you later.